Cadillac surrenders to Tesla is our story for today. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show, please take time to join us on Patreon and like and subscribe if you would as well. So today's show is, I want to say, kind of a shocker for me. What we're focused on is the fact that there's a problem that's happening, which is General Motors has a division called Cadillac. So when you think about it, Cadillac is kind of the top of the line, Tesla competitive priced vehicle within the fleet of General Motors. Now, what's kind of happened here, what we were informed of, is the fact that of the 800 dealers around the United States, 150 of them have decided to take buyouts of between $200,000 and $1 million and withdraw completely from being dealers for Cadillac. Now, it's possible that Cadillac could get other dealers to take over those slots so that they don't completely lose that franchise. But I have to say, this is a huge shocker. The main reason for that is that we were told by Bob Lutz of GM that what would happen to Tesla over time is that there would be a process where the large dollars of GM would allow them to bring out huge numbers of products that would eventually make Tesla irrelevant. The problem that's arrived, though, is that we're kind of getting the opposite deal here, meaning that instead of there being an invalidation of the business model of Tesla, there seems to be a thing happening where the opposite is occurring. So, for example, if GM chose to simply run those franchisees as company-owned facilities, which they can't, that would turn them into Tesla in terms of controlling, soup to nuts production all the way through, which I don't believe they're allowed to do. And so now we have an interesting question mark, which is those 150 dealers don't represent, obviously, it's a small percentage, under 20% of the dealers out there. But I'd have to say this brings up some interesting questions from General Motors. What they've indicated is by 2030, Cadillac will largely be an electric fleet. This is good news when it comes to electric vehicles. The problem that's popping up is, will GM and, for example, Daimler and VW address the shortcomings of their vehicles that customers are having problems with? One notable example of this is that it was recently announced or reported that there's actually an owner of a Porsche Taycan in Britain that had an incident where it took them 9 hours to go 150 miles. The problem they were having was that when they tried to recharge the vehicle, they couldn't find a charging facility for quite a while that would service the power needs of the Taycan. Hence, they were getting some power evidently, but not enough speed or the right quality in order for them to complete the trip in an efficient manner. This brings us back to General Motors and what's going on with Cadillac, which is, yes, GM has had the Bolt and the Volt on the market to date. They're now moving up into the luxury segment, and there are a large number of consumers that have range anxiety, particularly if they're spending a lot of dollars. And when we look at what's going on with Cadillac, I don't see the dedicated charging network that they actually need to be competitive. And it's good that you might have charging at the dealers, but are a lot of consumers going to find the dealers to be a great in process of going somewhere location? Because as it is right now, Tesla owners are pretty confident about if they need to charge, they have enough charge in their vehicle to get to charging stations that would allow them to go long distances. And I think it's interesting when you note charging stations and their locations, because there's an interesting sort of situation that pops up, which is what happens to future buyers relative to the vehicle you own? So there are a lot of consumers who are buying their Model 3, Model Y, Model X, etc. And it's not only a question of do you have early adopters within GM that are willing to pick those up? How does a secondary market look? In the case of Tesla, one example of a way someone could answer that question is there are actually a lot of buyers that are very interested in the first couple of 3 years production of Model S's. And the reason is that those vehicles still have unlimited charging facility access. So the bottom line here is that Tesla is offering value to customers in ways that currently VW, GM, Daimler, etc. cannot. And so will they build out the charging network they need to actually make this work? I would say it's likely that will occur, but the question that's coming up is, will they be in the game and not totally lose out what are called first mover advantage? So whoever it is that gets to market first with a product successfully ends up with a competitive advantage in terms of how consumers perceive them as delivering value in a certain space. And in this case, it's very clear that Tesla has the advantage of first mover because one of their core competencies is solar power, electricity, etc. So one would expect then that Tesla is leveraging those core advantages, and without a similar response from the large competitors of GM, etc., they could end up with a huge disaster. I actually spoke with one of our viewers who's based in Oregon, and he was making a trip from Oregon to Lake Tahoe area. And he pointed out that the challenge he had with Nissan Leaf was that as he moved between those two locations, the lack of dedicated charging made it difficult to find appropriate charging for his vehicle, as well as the length of time it took to move between those two locations. So yes, there's ChargePoint and other entities that are coming to market with ways that individuals can get between locations. But the complete solution that Tesla offers currently is, as Elon said, he's operating on first principles of physics. And it's really illustrated in the nature of the excellent delivery of services, product, and how all of it works together on behalf of customers. So stay tuned, I would say, because we're in a situation right now where I don't think that Cadillac's challenges is the demise of the entire industry, but what it really highlights is the fact that, a lot of times you can start off with a slow burn for certain companies to miss out and run into bankruptcy. And as we think about Cadillac being the main division that would compete with Tesla in the United States of GM, and we saw how things went in terms of the competition between the Bolt and the Model 3s, it just has that, oh no, a bunch of people are going to lose their job feeling. And it's a big part of it is, are they delivering products at scale for consumers that want to buy? And they've been slow to market, surprisingly, given that this problem has been known about for years, Tesla has been known about for years. So as we review the whole Bob Lutz, how things were supposed to work, he indicated 2021, as many as 20 new products would come out from GM, and those products would pretty much wipe Tesla out, particularly when you add in the other OEMs from around the world doing the same thing. And the issue right now is the Tesla solution is still a end-to-end better solution than anybody else is offering right now, regardless of how much they have in resources in their theoretic ability to come after Tesla. So I think this is really unfortunate because there's a lot of jobs that are tied to auto. There's a 7-to-1 ratio for every auto job in terms of how many other jobs and businesses are attached to that. And we're really not seeing the type of response thus far that suggests they're going to be able to stop Tesla from enjoying a complete domination of the marketplace. So this isn't, I have to admit, one of our longer shows, but could this be the beginning of the end of GM? The other thing to think about is the way that GM, Ford, even Chrysler are doing really well right now is through trucks. And as we have the Cybertruck arriving, there introduces a way in which, the protection they had of the truck profits to work with their cars that may not sell as well, is also going to start disappearing and therefore present huge problems for these guys in terms of their long-term future. What will happen here now that GM/Cadillac is now working hard to catch up in terms of modeling process, the same as what Tesla does. In theory, they should be able to catch up in 3 or 4 years, but will Tesla's footprint at that point be so large that it's difficult for them to find traction because of a lack of a complete solution that's Tesla competitive? We don't know what the answer is to this question, but it will be interesting to watch. But it is appropriate to say that Mr. Lutz's anticipation of the fact that Tesla was going to get wiped out by large numbers of huge OEMs, that answer to the situation is not happening. And it may happen, but it may happen after consumers have become accustomed to Tesla being sort of the leading provider at this point, and all these other competitors might enter, much like the cell phone business, where the entry of new phones now is fairly irrelevant. The delay to market associated with building out their battery factories is part of the deal. And then the other part of the deal we have to think about here is what happens after the new battery factory is built, and the form factor of batteries that are delivered also adds to Tesla's lead in the process. So some interesting points and questions here. I just don't think that Mr. Lutz / the management of GM anticipated that the game would move in the way it has. In particular, the fact that there's no battery capacity for them to work off of, and the form factor of batteries they have really doesn't make them competitive with Tesla. So the easy wipeout of Tesla that was planned is really not working out, and the delay to market that GM and others executed is now becoming costly in terms of jobs, reputation, etc. For our, just a reminder on our health tips for the day, don't forget to not go to bed within 2 hours of eating, preferably 4, to let the food digest. That way you don't get issues with acid reflux and potential cancer. Also wanted to encourage you to do 25 leg lifts. Make sure you strengthen the quad muscles, reduces the chance of knee issues. Also wanted to encourage you to try a 5-2 or another of the fasting diets as a mental health method as well as a general health method. And we also wanted to encourage you to think about maintaining your sleep schedule for a couple of weeks at a time, because it puts your body on a circadian rhythm that allows you to get more restful sleep on a regular basis. At any rate, I want to thank you again for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss German, au revoir French, lehitro Hebrew, hoda hafez Farsi, hey do Swedish, zdravstvuyte hello in Russian, ni hao ma hello in Chinese, namaste Hindi, Dobrodzenia, Polish, konbanwa, Japanese, and in Jamaica we say enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.